I just spent 3 days locked in a room with 40 people who make millions. I came for their secret to success, and I'm about to show you why it works exactly the same way at the piano. So recently I was invited to Teachable Collective, a 3-day event run by Teachable, the platform where we build and host our courses. For the first time, I spent 3 days in the same room with dozens of people who have built education businesses doing 6, 7, and even 8 figures a year. I went there hoping to find the secret formula, but I came back with something entirely different, and I'm eager to share with you the biggest lesson I learned and hear your thoughts on the topic. So here what hit me first. None of these people acted superior, although each of them is genuinely proud of their well-deserved success. They asked questions constantly instead of bragging about their own achievements. It didn't matter if they were talking to someone at their level or someone running something 10 times smaller. The moment they ran into an idea they didn't know, they listened. They took notes, and they asked one sharp question after another, very fast and precise. That makes of humility to learn from everywhere, and a hungry mind that generates questions like a machine gun is something I keep thinking about. I wish that in the classical piano field, people would so eagerly ask others about their opinions and exchange ideas. The second thing surprised me more. Strategies don't transfer the way people believe they do. The majority keeps running for a magic fix and the magic strategy, like, oh, Denis, what's the best strategy, the best exercise? While what I saw there and what applies to piano playing as well was absolutely shocking. For example, one creator tried to rebuild a $1 million business by copying the exact model of another more successful educator, because their neighbor's grass always looks greener, isn't it? It was a disaster for them. The same playbook that made one person several millions completely failed for the other. Or, for example, some creators thrive by building a big community. Others told me that community management became their worst headache, so they walked away from it on purpose. Some built everything around one premium flagship course, while others won with hundreds of small ones. Paid ads are the principal engine for one person, while it could be dead money for the next. One guy finally found peace of mind by moving to subscriptions model. Another said subscriptions nearly killed him, so he only sells one-time payments now. In other words, there was no one magic blueprint, like none. And then the part that really got me, because even when these people find something that works beautifully right now, it usually stops working a little further down the road. Just to stay where they are, never mind scaling further, they have to tear it down and rebuild again at some point. During lunch, I sat with 3 language school owners. One of them does 8 figures a year, while the other 2 brought like in 7 figures a year for each of their businesses. The 8-figure creator, when asked, told us her secret straight out. Stay ahead of the trends. What you're doing now, I did back in 2017, she said. To scale past this, you need a completely different approach, a different set of tools. And the tools making you 7 figures today, in 5 years, they will be useless. So the 3 of us just sat there for a while with jaws hanging down, letting that sink in. One programmer had to remake his entire course library to survive the AI shift. One musician got genuinely famous, crossed 7 figures in both subscribers and revenue, and now feels stuck because what worked yesterday keeps quietly losing its power today. So he pours tens of thousands into business programs and elite coaches, all to answer one question: how do I reinvent myself? And there's another thing many of them share, because they are not in it just for the money, even though every one of them studies and masters revenue like an art. They do it for the game itself. I asked a teacher who built a $20 million business what she would do next. And I expected the usual answers like, oh, retire, maybe travel, coast, since the company basically runs itself. Instead, she said, oh, I'll start a second business because I get bored fast. And that answer was the whole reason she is who she is. I also had a privilege and pleasure to talk to Teachable's managing director, and I asked her directly, what separates the most successful creators from everyone else? And she said, 2 things. First, not relying on one magic solution or perfect fix, but diversifying your tools and assets, expanding into new markets, running different strategies and channels of revenue simultaneously. And 2, adaptability, the ability to reinvent yourself. And that stayed with me on the flight home because I realized it is so much relevant elsewhere, also in life, because people are constantly arguing whether prayer beats meditation or which philosophy, habit, or practice is the right one. And I honestly think it's kind of waste of time because there is no universally superior tool. Be it prayer or meditation, journaling, therapy, silence, intensive training, hard discipline, total rest, any of them can become fuel for real growth, and any of them can become a way to hide at some point, because the tool is rarely the problem. The trouble starts when we treat a tool that works now as a permanent answer. A practice that genuinely saves you at one stage of life can turn into the exact thing holding you back at the next. And this is just as true for the piano, because people want the perfect practice system. How many hours? Which exercises? Heinen or Donani? Slow or fast? And the honest answer is almost always the same. It depends, and also it changes. Every tool has an expiration date. The approach that brought you to your current level is often not the one that will take you further. So real progress often means stepping out of autopilot, because the brain is brilliant at making any repeated task efficient. And the moment something feels familiar and easy, it stops changing you. And that comfort zone which you develop, like when staying for longer with a piece you already play well, is exactly where the trap is. But of course, we shouldn't confuse discipline with stubbornness either, because there's a big difference between continuing to work and continuing to repeat the same thing. Those are a little bit different things. Then there is the law of diminishing returns. For example, the first 20 minutes on a scale can give you a real result. The next 2 hours might give you almost nothing, and a good musician feels that moment coming and switches with intent instead of grinding on blindly. And you can put in 300 more percent and more time and walk away with 5% more skill because you already get to your ceiling for that day. So the truth is that as you approach the limits of your current abilities, the returns on your time and effort investment shrink dramatically. Take scales, for example. You decide they're valuable, for example, so you practice them 20 minutes a day, every day. During the first month, if you practice correctly, intensifying and implementing good habits and getting rid of unhealthy habits, during the first month, your progress is tremendous. During the second, it's still noticeable, but already might be smaller. And by the third month, it may happen that you've extracted most of what that particular practice can offer. And at this point, even if you increase your practice time from 20 minutes to, let's say, 1 hour a day, the real gains will probably be minimal in nature. So sometimes being adaptable means accepting that you've reached the point of diminishing returns and moving on to something else. So when people ask me all the time, like, what do you think about this exercise or that exercise? Should I practice Donani or Hanon? But honestly, the specific exercise matters far less than how you practice. So the real challenge in piano playing is finding the right balance, working on something long enough to make meaningful progress and genuinely develop, but not staying with it so long that the returns disappear and your time could be better spent elsewhere. But for this, you have to develop a very hard to obtain quality of being content with 95% of what you can do, instead of requiring from yourself 100% of what someone else did. Also, keep in mind that very often the real problem is not where the symptoms show up. For example, you might think that your fingers are failing, that your technique fails you, when the truth may be you just chose an awkward fingering or just lack memorization. Very often I see students who think that a passage doesn't work because their technique is not good, while the true reason is that they don't know that passage very well and don't develop automaticity and memorization properly. Another thing is that progress is rarely a straight line, because when we think about progress, we imagine something like that. Yeah. But a week with no improvement can mean that your brain is reorganizing underneath the surface. And very often when I learn a new piece, something very challenging, I feel like no improvement in a number of days, and then suddenly a tremendous improvement overnight. So real improvement actually doesn't look like this. It looks like that. Because progress accumulates gradually underneath, but manifests itself in leaps. But of course, if you stay too long here and you don't see any progress, it also can mean that your method just stopped working and you have to change something. Another very, very common issue, guys, is unreasonable expectations people have toward themselves. For example, adult amateurs come to me very often, very frustrated, because no matter how hard they work, they can't play at the level of concert pianists. So they come and say to me, oh, Denis, I practiced this like for the whole month, and I can't play this passage still as brilliantly as, I don't know, Yu Jiawang. And yes, I can surely help, and we do real progress, of course, but it's never enough for them because they compare themselves with the stars. But if you're like that, you're overlooking one crucial fact. There is simply no comparison between someone who started at the age of 3, devoted most of their childhood to practicing the piano, and someone who picked up it after finishing college and making a career, raising a family. Those are completely different starting points. And for some, seeing great pianists can motivate them to work harder. But for many people, it's actually discouraging because you feel that, okay, I probably will never reach that. But here, what you have to remember is that everyone has something to offer. You don't need to be the best possible pianist to be a valuable performer or teacher. You still can share something which will be relevant for someone. So it's worth asking yourself more often, why did you start playing the piano in the first place? Was it to prove something to other people? Was it to match someone's achievement, basically by becoming someone instead of yourself? Or was it because playing brings you joy, fulfillment, and a sense of personal growth at your own path? And yes, there always will be someone who plays better than you, and that's true for all of us. But the goal isn't to become someone else. So whatever practice strategy you choose, 2 most important skills you can develop are, first, adaptability and readiness to change approach, and also not getting frustrated that progress is not a straight line. Very often you do something for a very, very long time, and then you realize, oh, that was absolutely stupid. It's so ineffective. I have to change the whole strategy. It happens to everyone. It happened to me. It happened to like every person on earth. Nobody could always do only the linear progress and always choose correct decisions. And number 2, learning to appreciate your own progress and take pride in your achievements, no matter how small or modest they could be from someone else's perspective. So keep adapting and do it for the love of the game itself, not for some perfect result. Thank you for watching this, and see you next time.